At some point, you stop preparing for retirement and you start hoarding for it at the expense of everything else.
Who the f am I to tell you what to do with your money?
My name is Priya Malani, currently managing millions of hardworking dollars. Enough foreplay. Let's talk
Money.
Welcome to the F word. Smart money.
No bull.
Hey guys, today I'm talking about something you probably haven't thought about very much because, just being honest, unless you nerd out over personal finance, no one randomly thinks about it. So for the rest of us, I think it's fair to say that retirement is near impossible to think about because it's decades away. It's really hard to picture what you might need in 30 years, 30 plus years, let alone how much you should be saving for it right now. You know what you don't want after 65, right? You know you don't want to be driving an Uber just to cover your mortgage. But when it comes to what you do want your retirement to look like, I usually find that's where things get a little murky. Maybe you've thought about a boat or finally having time to travel. But beyond that, most high earners haven't given it much thought. And that's totally normal. But that's also exactly why so many high earners, people who are crushing it in basically every aspect of their life, fall into the same trap with their retirement investments. Because when something feels too far away to plan for, we default to whatever sounds like the safest bet, right? And for high earners, the advice that we've all been given is fairly simple. Max out your retirement accounts every year. And I get it. It sounds like a no-brainer. Tax advantages, compound interest, free money from an employer match, which, by the way, I'm not disagreeing with. Before I go further, let me just say this. If your goal is to retire super early and live on as little as possible before then, this is probably not the conversation for you. This episode is for people who want to live well today and be set up for a great life later. So if you're someone who sees yourself working into your 50s or 60s, maybe because you love what you do, or maybe just because you like making good money and want to live well, keep listening. Here's the thing. Saving for retirement isn't just about stockpiling as much as possible. It's about making sure you can maintain or improve your lifestyle once you get there. And that's where so many people get it wrong. The main narrative out there is you'll never have enough. You'll never be able to retire. So naturally, maxing out your retirement accounts makes sense. The more, the better. But a lot of us are stashing money away without any idea of what we'll actually need in retirement. So here's the one thing along that line that no one talks about. You can actually save too much. You can oversave for retirement. And I know that probably sounds ridiculous, but we see it all the time. We've all been conditioned to believe that when it comes to saving for the future, the more, the better. But here's the problem. Most people are saving without any real sense of how much they'll actually need. So they assume that maxing out their accounts is the responsible thing to do because that's what they've been told. So what happens when you save blindly without a real plan? I'm going to tell you about Mike, who thought he was doing basically everything right. He was maxing out his employer plan, getting a solid employer match, converting money into a Roth IRA, which I'll talk about another day, whether or not that's a good idea. Mike was on track to be a multimillionaire by retirement. Then, one day, he decided he wanted to up and quit his great paying job. Not retire, just take a break, a year off, maybe even explore the idea of starting his own thing, something that we've all probably thought about at some point or another. After years of grinding in a high-stress corporate role, he was finally in a financial position to make a big move. Or so he thought. Because when Mike went to check his financial situation, he realized his 401k locked up until age 59 and a half. His Roth IRA, untouchable without penalties. His checking account, low because he had prioritized maxing out his retirement accounts. And just like that, he was trapped in a job he didn't want anymore. Not because he wasn't making enough money, but because he saved in a way that gave him zero flexibility before retirement. For years, he had been so focused on maxing his accounts that he never even stopped to ask, one, how much do I actually need for retirement? Two, am I already on track, maybe even ahead of schedule? Kind of a crazy thought. And that's the mistake we see so many high earners make. They assume that more is always better, that saving for retirement is a race to max every account as soon as possible. But the goal of retirement isn't just stockpiling away as much as possible. It's to replace your income so you can maintain your lifestyle in the future. To be clear, you certainly want to make sure you're saving enough. But more importantly, you want to make sure you're saving the right amount in the right places and for the right reasons. One of the things I'm very big on is making sure your financial decisions are purpose-driven. I don't like arbitrary decision making. From the last few episodes, you'll probably know I'm not a fan of saving just for the sake of saving or investing just to invest. There should be a reason behind those decisions, and it should align with what you envision for your life. It should be deliberate, methodical, and it should make sense for you, not just because someone said it's the right thing to do. I'd put my money on the fact that you approach the rest of your life that way, and that's why you're in the position you're in. You don't just wake up and wing it when it comes to your career or your health or your friendships. And you don't just throw money at things without considering the value it might bring to your life. So when it comes to retirement savings, why are so many people blindly maxing out accounts with no real strategy? That's not planning. That's just following a script without questioning whether it actually makes sense for you. So if you wouldn't take an arbitrary approach to your career, your health, or other major life decisions, why are you doing it with your money? Going back to Mike, I just want to highlight something else. I didn't mention his income, but Mike is making $250,000. And yet, when he wanted to make a move, he couldn't. Again, not because he wasn't saving enough. He had done everything right. But in doing so, he had unintentionally locked himself out of his own money. He had prioritized, let's call him future Mike, so aggressively that present Mike had no room to breathe. And that's the real danger of blindly maxing out accounts without a plan. You end up with all your money locked up in a future you might want at the cost of the life you definitely want right now. Unfortunately, he just never really stopped to consider if he was already ahead of schedule. I get it. It's not his fault. We're all listening to the same thing. Practically speaking, a good way to think about oversaving is this. If your retirement accounts are on track to replace more than your income, you might be locking up too much, especially when you realize that two of your biggest expenses go away in retirement: saving for the future and housing. Right? Think about it. Right now, a huge chunk of your paycheck is likely going towards saving aggressively for your future. But in retirement, that stops. You're no longer saving for retirement or stockpiling cash away for a life that's already here. And then there's housing. If you own a home and plan to pay off your mortgage before retirement, which many people do, that's another massive expense that disappears. So when you take those two things off the table, you might not actually need to replace your income in retirement. And yet so many people oversave by default without ever stopping to consider whether they're already on track or maybe even ahead of schedule. Here's what happens when you don't stop to think about and put a plan in place. One, you could already be on track, but never know, right? How would you know if you never check? Two, you could be trading optionality in your career, your life, for a future that might already be secured. The sad thing for Mike was that he had worked so hard for his success and really thought he was doing the right thing. So you can imagine his frustration when he realized he had built wealth, but not optionality. He couldn't actually use his money for the life he wanted when he wanted it. The reality is most high earners who start saving early are actually on track, sometimes years ahead, but they don't realize it because they've never actually done the math. So that's what I want to do right now. Let's do some quick math to see if you're ahead of schedule. For those of you who don't know, our team works with high earners every day, and based on our clients' current needs, we're planning, for most of them, to have somewhere between $4 and $9 million by the time they're 65. Right? That's a huge range, right? But it makes sense. Different people have different lifestyles that they're aiming for. Some will need more money than others. Some people want to jet set, go bigger in their later years. Other people want to get an RV and hit the road, right? There's really no right or wrong way to do retirement. It just matters that you're intentionally saving for what you want. Okay, so let's see how easy it is to accidentally oversave. I'm not going to use exact IRS contribution limits here because they change from year to year, but you'll get the idea and have a sense of whether or not you're on track or maybe even oversaving. So let's say you're 30 years old and you're making $200,000 per year. You're doing the quote unquote responsible thing and maxing out your employer plan, getting the full match, perfectly reasonable. That means there's more money going in to your retirement accounts. All in, maybe let's say there's around $30,000 per year going towards retirement. Very solid. Now, let's assume a 7% average annual return, which, by the way, is a conservative assumption based on historical market performance. So, where do you end up? By the time you hit 65, just from these contributions alone, your retirement accounts would grow to over $5 million. And that's without increasing contributions at all. No raises, no bonuses, no extra investing. Just sticking to what you're already doing. And if you get normal salary increases and bump your contributions over time to increase in line with the new IRS limits, you can expect that number to climb even higher, even faster. And get this, that's just your accounts. If you have a partner who's also working and saving, double it. Suddenly, you're looking at $10 million in retirement savings, which is more than you probably need. Now, if you're still thinking, isn't that a good thing? Here's the problem. At some point, you stop preparing for retirement and you start hoarding for it at the expense of everything else, right? Once you have a sense for what you might need, the next question isn't, how do I save for retirement? It's, what else should I be thinking about? Because the last thing you want to do is be decades ahead on retirement and be completely neglecting the goals that are right in front of you. The first home you want to buy sometime in the next 5 to 6 years, the business you might want to start in the next decade, the extended travel, the sabbatical, the family planning, whatever you envision for your life. If all your extra money is locked up in retirement accounts, you're forcing yourself to wait decades to enjoy the life you're working so hard to afford. And that's a mistake. As far as I'm concerned, the point of making good money isn't just to retire well, it's to actually enjoy your life before then, too. So here's the takeaway. Saving for retirement is important, but maxing out your accounts without a plan is not a good idea. If you're already on track, or maybe ahead of schedule, locking up even more money in retirement accounts doesn't necessarily make you better off. It just limits your ability to accomplish other big financial goals before that money is accessible to you. So I'll leave you with this. Optionality is everything. When you're a high earner, your financial plan shouldn't just be about your future. It should give you choices in the near term too. We'll definitely dive more into that in a future episode. Again, how to build financial strategy that gives you both that long-term security and short-term flexibility. Because at the end of the day, the real flex isn't hoarding millions into a retirement account that you can't touch for 30 years. I'm looking at you, backdoor Roth bros. It's having the freedom to make big moves whenever you damn well please. If this episode hit home for you, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to send them my way. I'll make sure we cover them when we dig into this topic again. All right. See you next time. Thanks for listening to The F Word with Priya Malani. If you like what you heard, hit subscribe wherever you're listening and leave us a review while you're at it. We're approval junkies. Don't forget, you can find a ton of great resources, content, courses, and other freebies at stashwealth.com. Now, for the capital S stuff our lawyers want us to say. Stash Wealth is a registered investment advisor. Content presented is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to make an offer or solicitation for any specific securities, product, service, or strategy. Consult with a qualified investment advisor, that's us, before implementing any strategy. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. There, we said it.
Did I have that up?